Welcome back, man. What up, though? Wake up, Woodward family. Hit that like button for the legend, Mr. Rod Beard, Detroit News Sports Editor-in-Chief, and he always brings the heat. I'm so glad that we get him on every single Wednesday to talk all of Detroit sports.
Hashtag
and as
blast.
always, as usual, we do have our Woodward Pistons segment. If you have any questions for the legend, Mr. Rod Beard, or any statements or comments, get them into the chat right now. But we got to get this drum roll going.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's rock. Hey, yo! Shout out to the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard, and as always, Mr. Legend himself. We got to kick it off with Rod Beard's thoughts on the Detroit Pistons.
Take your time.
That's the whole chat.
I know it's trying.
It's just. I won't even say I can't watch it anymore. I don't watch it anymore. It's just.
You're speaking for a lot of people right now, man.
I just don't. There's always something else that can grab my attention that is better. It's just not good basketball to watch as a whole. Because even when the starters are in, you know the bench has to come in at some point. And it's like, it's not even like a scary movie where you say, don't go down there, don't put in the bench because you have to. But it's just don't do that. It's a weird existence. I don't even have a good thought for you today. It's just, I tried. I turned it on and then
I think is a great thought. I think it's a great thought because when you bring up the bench, this is something that fans all over, and even the numbers, man, even the numbers. And I got a couple questions in the chat that I'm going to read a little bit later. But people are wondering why these all bench lineups, why certain players that are still playing, are they trying to make sure that they don't wind up with the franchises low in wins? A lot of fans are wondering what's going on, and a lot of it stems obviously with Monty Williams, and he had some comments to say about why guys like James Wiseman are still playing, and he says it's because of the work ethic that he sees in practice behind the scenes. But at some point in time, you know, where do the chances stop because of what's going on the actual game court? Right. And I trust me, when the numbers are out there about the starters plus minus versus the bench, when they start to go to the bench, it's just polarizing. You talk about polar opposites. Cade Cunningham, when we covered this thing last week, we did another segment. Cade Cunningham was like plus 18 over 5 games, but the team only had 1 win. I just don't understand what is going on in that regard. And it's tough, especially when we do ask the coach these questions and the answers that are coming back are like, hey, you know what? And I get it. They're not going to necessarily be clued into what's going on social media. But the numbers just say that these bench units, these all bench lineups, or even some of the lineups that they play, they got to go away. They got to go away. I don't think that is fair to the team or to the supporters. What are you saying, brother?
Right, but you just have new guys that you're trying to work into the patchwork, and it is just not doing. It's just not there whatsoever, and it's frustrating for fans, and I know, and I've been through it on the other side as a writer covering it. It's frustrating on that side, but from a fan, if you are watching it and you have that investment in it, it's tough. And these teams are good. Miami's good. Orlando's good. Yeah. Some of these teams that they're losing to are good, but it's just you want to see some movement where you feel like, okay, these are steps that they're taking in the right direction. Of these last, so you look at the last 10 games, and they're 1-9 in their last 10. Is there another game in there they should have won? Clippers, Lakers, Suns, Pacers, Magic, Knicks, Bulls, Cavs, Magic, Heat. Is there a game they should have won that they didn't win in there?
Maybe the Knicks one, but that's probably about it.
Arguably the first Magic
one. The first Magic one. But yeah, I get your point.
I mean, against I'm saying the caliber of team that they're playing, they're not going to go in there and win most of those. Mm-hmm. Going a little bit further back, if you look at the Hornets, the Wizards, those are ones that you feel like, they'll win 1 or 2 of those. So even coming up, there just aren't a lot of games. They got the Hornets and the Raptors coming up, but they got Boston, twice. Indiana. There just aren't a lot of easy games in here that they should be winning where you say, all right, they have to play extremely well. Their margin of error is so small in these games that they've got to be in it up to the last crunch time of the last 4 minutes. And that's just so hard to do with the bench unit and the way that they're rotating these guys.
Yeah, definitely. And they started this year saying that it was an assessment year, and then at the trade deadline, they definitely got rid of a lot of players and brought in some other players that they're going to take a look at. And one of the questions that a lot of fans are starting to have is, look, they want to see this team taking some major steps forward next year as it relates to what they bring onto this roster. We saw a guy last night in the Miami Heat, and Thomas Bryant, who I've been saying for about 1.5 to 2 years now, we need more players like that. Those guys with that punch, with that fire, with that, they never turn it off. They play with a certain physicality that when you go back to the beginning of the year, Stewart and Duren started the year off saying, yeah, we want to play physical. We want to make sure that everybody comes to the lane. They understand that this is our paint to own. And they started off the season, the first 4 or 5 games, playing like that. And then one of them got injured, and it seemed like they never recovered that physicality at all. I don't know if that has something to do with the depth or the lack thereof as it relates to the physicality that they can bring, but a lot of people are wondering, how does this thing shake out next year? A lot of people are wondering, like, where the Pistons going to go from here. One of the questions I have is, what do they do even if they do wind up with the #1 draft pick? A lot of people are down on this draft. You've heard me for a long time state, you know what, I want them to trade that pick for a player that can come in and be an impact. And let me make sure I shout out who dropped that in the chat.
Like Brandon Ingram?
As well. About the #1. Dad with Tourette's, he talked about it. He talked about the #1 draft pick. Do you go and you draft somebody, or are you looking more to establish something more like the Orlando Magic did? They brought in kind of these younger vets like Gary Harris, like Wendell Carter, or do you go the route of even the Houston Rockets, who brought in more solidified vets like Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet? To me personally, it is time. No more experimenting. No more trying to see if this player, if you can kick the tires on that player. It is now time to go out there and bring in those guys. We talked about in the past how the Detroit Pistons have surrounded like Andre Drummond and Stanley Johnson with kind of these mid-tier free agent signings that then took this Detroit Pistons team, honestly, to the playoffs. And I'm ready for that. I'm ready for them to go out there and around these kind of low contracts, low value contracts in your rookie guys or these rookie contract players, for them to go out there and do the same. It's time to stop with these experiments. It's time to stop with these all bench lineups. It's time to stop bringing in players that realistically don't bleed that red, white, and blue of Detroit Pistons basketball of old. It's time to step forward. The fans, I applaud you guys. The fact that there's still conversation, and people, they'll joke and they'll say, why are we talking about the Pistons? Why? Because everybody's still talking about the Pistons. Detroit sports fans aren't necessarily the most fickle or the most fair-weathered fans out there. They will have jokes because the Detroit Pistons deserve it, but they hurt when they see this team lose. They hurt when they see this team not playing up to their full capacity. Yeah. They hurt when they don't see this team going out there and putting forth what Detroit, period, is supposed to represent. And we see the Lions, they're talking about going out there and intentionally going and getting people that identify with the city. It's time for the Detroit Pistons to do that. Let's sew this restore thing up. Or else, and I continue to say this, you would have failed Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson. What's the point of going and getting these guys if you don't think that they're the ones worth surrounding and building around right now? It just, man, I just continue to just scratch my head at it. I just do.
I got a name for you.
Yes,
I got
sir.
a name for you.
Ooh.
Bronny James.
Oh,
what do you say, Bronny
James? Bronny
I mean,
James.
Call LeBron's bluff. If he said he wants to play with his kid, call his bluff and see if he's coming to Detroit. I mean, is there anybody in the draft that can change your fortunes any more than that? No.
Not really.
No.
And I'm 100%,
2 for 1.
I'm 100% with you. Trade the pick. I don't care who you get. Trade the pick. Because if you're in Troy Weaver's spot, you have a ticking clock, theoretically, on how long you're here and how much more you can do with this roster. So you have to trade the pick.
Yeah. Get rid of the pick. I'm not for more young players being added to this squad. I know KG, you had some comments or some questions as well about this.
Yeah, so I mean, one bright spot off the bench has been Simone Fontecchio. The guy, he plays on the defensive end. He's a really good shooter, man. And nothing against Isaiah Stewart, but Monty Williams continues to start him. Don't you think Simone Fontecchio deserves a starting spot on this team? I mean, what do you have to lose, really? What are your thoughts on Simone Fontecchio possibly starting for this team going forward?
Does he project as a long-term starter for you? Can you see a world where he's starting at 3?
Probably
I don't think I can.
Yeah.
I don't think I can. I can see Asar starting at 3, and that's why you have to put him there and just let him take his lumps there if he needs to. And Fontecchio can be a sort of 6-man, 7th-man guy off the bench who provides some scoring for you, and he's excelling in that role. Put guys in the role that you project them to be and let them start excelling there and doing well there, and then that's more the roster construction that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Hey, Rod, so I was watching or getting ready to watch the Cavaliers-Celtics game last night, and they flashed this graphic on ESPN that showed the top 3 man lineups in the NBA in terms of their net rating. And 2 of the 3 were units that no one would have guessed would have been together 2 years ago, 24 months ago. It was Celtics, Jalen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, and Derek White led the way at plus 16.4. You got the Nuggets, Jokic, Murray, and Michael Porter Jr., and then the Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Dame Lillard, and Brook Lopez. Do you think there's a threesome like that on this Detroit Pistons roster right now? Are there 3 guys on this team that maybe not to that level but can be that core to build around, where those 3 are on the court, good things are happening?
That's a good question.
I'm going to go back on what I just said, and I'll say Cade, Duren, and Fontecchio. I mean, there's no 3 right now who could be that, but unnamed small forward or unnamed shooting guard who's averaging 18 points a game could be something like that. But right now, Fontecchio is probably the closest thing. And when Ivy is playing at an optimal level, shooting well, then he could be that. But it's the same thing with Ivy. He's got to be able to hurt you off the dribble and be able to make you respect his 3-point shot, because teams are just going to lag back, and you can suit a defense to a guy who's quicker than you, but you can't do anything when he's quicker than you and he's shooting well. You can't lag back. You can't play too tight. You can't help too much on a guy like that. That's why I think that's the biggest step that Jaden Ivey can take, is and I think, what is he, 37, 38% from 3 this year? Something a little bit more respectable. But I just want to see that number go up a little bit more for him.
Yeah, that's what stood out to me, seeing that the Celtics are up there. Didn't include Jason Tatum or Robert Williams. It was Porzingis and Derek White, both guys that can stretch the floor, shoot the 3, and Derek White, that wing who can play defense.
It shows you kind of like the lack of talent, lack of like actual NBA experience talent that the Detroit Pistons have right now. They need more guys like that. I do believe in Cade Cunningham. I do believe in Jalen Duren. I do believe, like, even in Simone Fontecchio, even if he's not the long-term starting 3, I do believe that he's a piece that you want on this team going forward, even if it's off the bench. Same that I feel with Isaiah Stewart. I don't necessarily believe that he should be starting at the 4. I'm never going to say that he shouldn't be. If he goes out there and he snags that position, that starting spot, then so be it. But long-term, I'm really hoping this squad goes out there, man. Like I said earlier, I got to reiterate it. And like you said as well, they got to go out there and they got to get guys. No more young experiments. No more of this kind of kicking the tires on guys who probably didn't work out in other places. Go out there and even more to Monty Williams' benefit, go out there and get players that work within his scheme and within his style. One word that I've kind of heard, or the phrase that I've heard return back to media availability and practices, is the 0.5-second offense. He said he absolutely loves what Simone Fontecchio brings in that regard, because he's one of those guys that can put the ball on the floor if he needs to. He can relocate along the 3-point line if he needs to, and he can obviously hit the 3. And he makes his decisions very, very quickly. We've seen him get into the paint. We've seen him play with physicality. And then on the defensive side of the ball as well, you're not necessarily losing anything. Right now, we have certain players before even they went through this trade deadline where we can say, hey, they got some good upside as it relates to their offense, but defensively they are struggling. Or hey, they got some good upside to their defense, but offensively they are struggling. They got to go out there and like you stated in these lineups that you brought up, it's not even like the superstar players. Go out there and just get like these impact contributors on both sides of the floor that can then give Cade Cunningham more room to operate in. I'm going to continue to say Cade Cunningham is a star. when you see what this guy is going out there and doing with low free throws, he's not getting the respect that other number 1 overall draft picks have gotten at all, and he's still going out there and he's putting in that work. I want to see the rest of these young guys that will move forward with them next year step up, step it up. It's just time. It's time. I feel like I've seen previous teams with a little less talent go out there and perform much better than this squad, man. And it's like, I'm going to continue to say this, it's not fair to the fans. They're continuing to stay checked in. They are. And that's been an amazing thing. That's been, to me, an amazing thing to go to the arena, and it starts slow in terms of people getting in there. Then you look around, you see 40, 50% capacity, and I'm just sitting here like, why? Why? Because it's Detroit, man. It's in our blood. It's in our DNA. But, Rod, thank you for your time. Is there any last words from you gentlemen, or we good?
Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Rod. You take us out.
I got some numbers to help you. I got some numbers to help you on Cade. Last 7 games, 23.9 points, 4.4 rebounds, 7.1 assists, 48% from 3.
Nice.
48% from 3. 49% from the field.
Not bad.
Ain't one hammer jammer down on Duncan Robinson last night.
K. Oh. Woo. Woo.
Yeah.
K, man. Get that man some help.
You got it.
Definitely. If you're on Rod, every Wednesday, man, you bring the help to this show as well. The chat, they appreciate you every single week. They're like, yo, y'all got to find a way to get Rod Beard on more. Some people are calling you Rod Goatee in the chat as well. So I just had to make sure you do that. But thank you as always, Rod. We appreciate you and your time. As always, guys, check out the Detroit News, the great work that they do over there. It's a lot of good people as well as good coverage of your Detroit sports teams. We're appreciative of your contributions every single week, Rod. Thank you, man. Thank you,
Rod.
Thanks, Rod.
All right, gentlemen. Have a good Wednesday.
All right,
Thank
you
you,
too,
Rod.
brother. You too.
That was awesome.
That was good news, man.
Awesome.
You know, especially that Cade Cunningham stats at the end. But
can I kick it?
we got
Yes,
some
I
bad
can.
news
Hey,
as
World
well, man.
Tour.
We got good news coming up.
Yeah.
With a little OU
segment.
Golden Grizzlies insider giving us some perspective on their postseason run. But there is some bad news that you got to share first. At least one of our sponsors who can help deal with the bad news.
Yeah, definitely. And then we get some good news about probably our best basketball team in the state.
Oh,
I can't wait.